Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are here today with another of my brothers from another mother, Tony Rezac. Tony is the author. He wrote Body and Soul, the Essential Handbook for Men. You can find that anywhere you're going to find your books. It's a wonderful read. Tony's also a Rolfer. If you're not familiar with body work, think massage on crack. It's kind of the rough idea. Look it up. It's interesting, and boy howdy, it'll get you connected to your body for sure. As well, Tony, I met you through Rolfing, initially through my wife, actually, Sarah. And from there, I was already in a stage in my life where I was doing a lot of therapy and stuff. I had identified that I wasn't necessarily happy with my path on life. And slowly you started to kind of hint of like, hey, I do some men's groups. And all right, well, why don't you tell me more? And here we are, I don't know, 10, 15 years down the road now. I've been part of many of your men's groups. And if you guys are not familiar with men's work, go look up the Mankind Project, which Tony has done work with and facilitated lots of stuff. And one of these days I'm going to go do the New Warrior training. But welcome, Tony.
Thank you.
So today we had a topic that's, again, pertinent in today's world. And that's around initiation and the lack of it, not necessarily specific to men, but I think it potentially has more damaging qualities if not properly addressed with young men. So I wanted to chat with you a little bit about what that looks like. Maybe we start with, your experiences in the New Warrior Project and how that kind of, shifted your life mission and journey, if you will.
Sure. Yeah. The men's movement, it sort of got started with two books. There was Iron John by Robert Bly and Fire in the Belly with Sam Keane. And this was kind of late 80s, early 90s. And they had recognized that one of the reasons why there was so much violence in the Western men, the young men in particular, was that they were not being properly initiated. So in indigenous tribes, so if you look at like the African indigenous tribes as an example, when a boy gets to be 11, 12 years old, they have a whole ritual where the warrior men come and quote unquote steal the boy from the mother's hut to go out for a 3-day ordeal where they have to face a lion and a bunch of other processes that the elders take the boy through. When the boy comes back into the village, he's a man. He sleeps now on the men's side of the village, right? He's now a warrior. He's been initiated, and it comes with certain expectations. He's no longer a boy. He's going to set aside immature behavior. There's expectations that the mature male tribe has of him. And Robert Bly and Keene recognize we don't have that. And so that's why you can have these 30, 40, 50-year-old men still doing, I'm not judging fantasy football, but, I'm just a party boy. I've never really laid claim to my mature masculine. I'm just I'm a happy-go-lucky, nice guy. I'm 55 and I don't have any oomph, right? They recognized there was something that was missing in the men. So they built this training, and it's done the same all over the world. So every man goes through probably 65 processes over 3 days. And they use kind of Joseph Campbell's hero's journey as a kind of template. So you get challenged on a whole bunch of different levels. You can't solve the problems on the weekend just on your own. You have to bond with your brothers to figure stuff out.
Yep.
And one of the big things is you come out of it with a stated mission of what your life's going to be about, what you're going to build your life around, because they recognize men with no mission are ripe to live trivial lives, to drink too much, to surf too much porn, to do the things that men do when they're like, they don't have a mission because there's a restlessness.
You're floating along.
You're floating along. And so they're really big on, they take you through this thing, but then you build a solid mission that you say, that's what my life's going to be about. And then that really does the trick. That really changes a lot of things because, who I was before I did that weekend and after is different. Like my wife's like, you came off the weekend and there was just a lot of things different about you. You're different. And I can't quite put my finger on it, but you seem more like a man now. You know what I mean? Is the short version of it. So, yeah.
Well, it's so important to me because it's funny. I've struggled with the word man,
Mm-hmm.
specifically in reference to myself. For the longest time,
Sure.
I was the party boy. I was there to
Call
have
yourself a man child. Or
yeah, a
Yeah,
man child,
yeah.
and I
your
still
boy.
I joke about it, but it really was that discomfort of I didn't feel that I had done the right things to be a man. Like men know what they want, what they're about, you know, what's okay, what's not, how to behave. I was just there to party. I think I was, you know, it was post a lot of our work. I was probably late 30s, early 40s before I started to like dabble with like, I'm a man. And it's like in my mid 40s, like you'd think I would have figured it out a little bit sooner.
But you weren't cultured to do that. Like I remember being on the weekend and when they started using men as a word, I was like looking around like, did they mean me? You know what I mean? I'm 37. Is that, are we talking about, I guess I'm included here, you know?
I'm
And
the dude.
It's
Yeah.
kind of the ultimate imposter syndrome, right?
yeah, totally.
Wow.
Yeah.
I hadn't really thought about it from that angle.
Big
but
time, big time. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Well, so obviously, you know, our conversations have been around, you know, men's work, the mature masculine, and Sarah and I were talking this morning and thinking about it. It's, it occurs to me, and as we discussed, there's some built-in initiation processes for women, you know, having your period. These are, you're becoming a woman. And it's, I believe, equally as critical that women have these experiences and are shown the way, if you will. But I wanted to like kind of ask you about that a little bit, Sarah. Like, is it lacking in your eyes? You know, what was your experience? How does that?
Well, I mean, in a lot of public education systems, you kind of get a little bit of that from whatever age this sex education, but it really doesn't have any other context other than procreation. It doesn't, you know, you don't talk about what it means to be a woman, what the implications of that are. So yeah, I do think it's lacking. And then, you know, there are
Having a child seems like it would be the ultimate initiation. I
Oh,
hope
yeah.
you're a woman or a man before that happens, because
But are
boy,
you?
things about to change. Well, no, and that's, I think a lot of folks aren't. I sure as hell wasn't.
Right. Well, and there's an assumption that once you become a parent, you have that mindset. But if you haven't been taught to have that type of mindset, then how do you expect, I guess, take a step back. If you spend a child's lifetime up into a certain point doing things for them and telling them what they can and can't do and not allowing them to explore and understand what it means to be an adult and a person in this world, how do you expect having this one event change everything about you when you've had 18, 20, 25, 30 years of being a certain way and being told what you're capable of and what you're not? And so I do think it's sorely lacking on both the men's side and the women's side. I see a lot of what you would consider initiation right now for men, like going, masturbating for the first time, like you said, stealing a cigarette or smoking a cigarette, having a beer, watching porn for the first time. All of these different things have a very shameful negative connotation, whereas women's, you're talking about the first time that you hold hands, or the first time you put makeup on, or the first time you shave your legs, or the first time you get your period. Like, those are all things that are pretty run of the mill. And so there is definitely a disparate path around the shame, I feel like, for the men's initiation. So being able to create an opportunity for that to be in a positive light is incredibly powerful.
Absolutely. It seems to me that the stakes might be higher for men simply because if they're not initiated, they seek it out, like joining gangs.
Yes.
They'll try to self-initiate in ways that are really dysfunctional. You don't see that from women as much. They're not gonna go, join a gang that does really, really reckless things because there's something that's missing. And also, I love what you said. I think both men and women could benefit from seeing their whole life through an initiatory lens. So there's always going to be things that pop up that initiate you, whether you're ready. It could be that your father dies, or it could be you get an illness, you decide to get sober, a loved one gets ill.
Yeah.
But there's always, life is always going to show you something that has an initiatory impact, meaning, I thought everything was going smoothly. Now here this happens, and I'm having to deal with shame, grief, fear, all these things that I have to deal with that I didn't think I was going to have to deal with. But
In a
now,
stressful
now the
situation,
universe,
too.
the universe is initiating me into a new way of being, and it feels like the next chapter of my hero's journey is upon me. It's being forced upon me.
Yeah,
I thought
you don't have a choice.
there's a tendency, I think, in the West to go, hey, everything's good. I'm making money. My health's good. I've got a good love life. I got a friend group. Let me see if I can just keep this like this for a long
As
time.
long as
And it's like
possible.
the universe doesn't work that way. It's like, okay, well, are you ready for the next chapter of your hero's journey? Because even if you're not, here's an initiatory event for you. You just drank too much and got your second DUI, and now all of a sudden it's staring you in the face like maybe I don't have a handle on things, and maybe the universe is asking me, or my wife is asking me for a new way of being around that, for instance. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it just struck me what's at stake for the initiation of women into culture versus what's at stake for the initiation of men. And the idea that if a woman isn't able to come into her own as a parent and a matriarch, there's not a lot that can be done about that outside of removing that person from the situation. But men have been given the opportunity, unfortunately, of not having to show
To own up.
And, the idea of the single mom with a deadbeat dad is an incredibly poignant stereotype, but it's a stereotype
Very prevalent. Yeah.
because it's a real thing.
Absolutely.
So, not giving the men the option of not showing up sucks for society all the way around. And women aren't necessarily afforded that opportunity
That luxury.
as much.
No,
Like
you're
we
right.
have to show up or the next generation doesn't make it.
Yep. Absolutely.
Well, and I guess that's the even bigger fear is the next generation. If you are not a mature man, if you are not a put together woman, your little children see that.
Yeah. And they emulate it.
Exactly. If, dad likes to smoke cigarettes and say horrible shit and slap people around at the grocery store when they, are assholes, like, wow, what a great message. Or mom's not present. Like, how?
Or dad drinks and drives and grabs ladies' parts that they're not supposed to. Like, you see those things. And of course, that's somebody you look up to. So why wouldn't you want to emulate it? And if you're never told that that's not the way you do things, how are you going to know?
Yeah.
That's interesting because there are so many, we're starting to look at all the different initiation processes, and then I look at, religion that can be an initiation process. I know all of us here have done the Landmark Forum work. That's another initiation process. Many of these processes, like you said, joining a gang is an example. It is very much an initiation, and it's at the moment probably a very powerful, heady feeling. But does it play into you behaving well in society later on? Some of these. So I don't know the answer because I always hate government oversight, if you will. But if we as a people could agree on like there are some processes that everybody really should go through. The military, that's another great one. Unfortunately, sadly, military often, you deal with dark, ugly stuff and you come home and you have to go through a new initiation process because PTSD or just, I can't even imagine what those poor folks go through.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did want to just address the importance of this. And thank you for guiding me through so much of it and helping me turn into a man in my 40s. That's delightful for everyone, I think.
You should thank me too.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for sticking around and putting up with my nonsensical bullshit.
I mean, I would say, yeah, you had a very similar type of initiation experience in our integrity conversation because there was a forcing function in our relationship where, we had a come to Jesus moment about integrity in the household and how that's going to look. And you being open to that conversation and what it meant and the gravity of it is really why we are together still and why we are as good as we are, as great and amazing as we are, is because you were able to embrace that opportunity that I gave you to live a life of integrity and intention.
Yeah.
And that was the moment you flipped over from being a boy to being a man.
Yeah. I don't know quite how we got there, but I think everyone in this room was involved.
Yeah. I definitely heard the come Jesus, from
Stories.
his, and I'm like, okay, he's got it. He's on his feet are to the fire.
Yeah.
Sarah's calling him out, and so he's on the hot seat. And how is he going to respond?
Let's
But I did
Let's
it
hope.
with love.
Absolutely, you did.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's a very challenging thing. Like you mentioned, be it the initiate, I haven't been through the New Warrior training yet.
I want to do it.
Do they do it for women?
Yeah, well, they have a woman within initiation that they do.
Okay.
That they take the women through.
I
Yeah.
want to do the
Yeah.
men's.
You're like, I want to.
I know. I want to be a warrior.
Somebody has to be the man in this relationship. And it sure isn't going to be me. So
I mean, look at that shirt.
it's beautiful.
Oh, I'm so in love with that shirt.
Nobody likes a douche canoe. And I was that for many, many years. So I wanted to talk as well. You and I, in all of our years of talking, it seems like we had fairly similar stories. I don't want to put this term on you, but fuckboy is what I like to have called myself.
Sure.
I was the party guy. I like to have a good time. It's like, if you wanted to go out and get fucked up and hang out and play pool and party and like break into hot tubs and shit and have a good time, like I was your dude, and it was going to be a good time for everybody. And it was a lot of fun for a long time. It was very heady. Unfortunately, I did become a douche canoe in that process. But somewhere along the line, something breaks where, you, Tony, decided that you were doing a lot of the same stuff, going out and partying and being the guy. Like at some point you figured out that wasn't working for your life and you had to make a change. Do you remember, like, was there a specific moment where you were like, oh shit, this has to change?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was slow. I mean, I'm not a fast changer. I slowly change. So I was very attached to my life of the party persona.
Yeah.
I was somebody that could tell funny stories. I could stay up all night. I could drink a lot. I could smoke a lot. And so if I was in the right mood, if it was a full moon and I was ready to go all night, and it didn't matter what was going on. And so I attracted a group of friends that appreciated that particular skill set, right?
Yeah.
I had friends that liked to do the same, and they appreciated that I was not going to fizzle out at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
I was
You're here to party.
I'm here to do it. Right. And, and then I didn't want to really give it up. I even after I became a father, I didn't really want to give it up. But my physical, I was just starting to get my liver was starting to go, we don't like this anymore.
Yeah, we're done with this
I'm a
bullshit.
body worker, so I'm in, and I was an athlete, so I'm in touch with my body. And I was like, I'm getting hungover after like one or two drinks.
Yes.
My eyes are blood red shot in the mornings, and I had 2 Manhattans last night.
Yeah.
Oh no.
I used to drink 18 of these before I left.
Yeah, I was just wasn't feeling good.
That was a pregame.
Yeah. And then I was having this recurring dream at the time where I was hiking up this mountain, and I had 3 mentors: Jim Mitchell, Mark Jackson, and John Wilson. 3 mentors
I remember these names.
3 mentors from the Mankind Project, all older, all sober, by the way.
Yeah.
And I was carrying one of those old suitcases like from Ellis Island that had all the stickers on it. And I didn't know what was in it. And I was going through this wooden doorway, and I was going to go up higher on the mountain to meet them. And I was pulling the suitcase through the doorway, and then the door would close up around my suitcase, and I couldn't get my suitcase through. And when I looked up to see them, they all had their arms folded over their chest, and they were big guys, and they're just looking at me with that kind of warrior look, like, what's it going to be, Rezac?
Yeah.
What are you going to do here?
Time to own up.
And then I popped open the suitcase. It was all full of booze. There wasn't anything in there but booze bottles, big bottles of Maker's Mark and Jack Daniels and vodka. And I'm
party.
like, shit, And so I had that dream probably 3 or 4 times over a 2-week period. And then I was just like, okay, I'm done. I'm out. I can't do this anymore. I quietly, I went to AA a couple of times a week for about 6 weeks. So I was really fortunate. I wasn't somebody that was like
physically addicted.
Yeah, it was more of a identity to my persona that needed to be let go of. And it seemed like after 6 weeks I could breathe, and I was like, you know what? I got a handle on this. And I didn't really like AA. I'm not judging AA. I think AA has helped millions and millions of people.
Yep.
I advocate for it. I think it's a great path if you need to go that way. But it was, there was a lot of, there was a lot of smoking, and just, it wasn't quite my crowd.
Yep.
And once I got a handle on it, I felt like, no, I can really breathe.
Got my tools.
I got my tools, and I think I can do this, and I don't need much more help. If I need help, I can always go back, or I can get somebody to help me with it. But right now, I think I'm just going to stay sober. And that was like 9.5 years ago. So
It's funny. I remember you talking in the men's groups sometimes about being, and I wasn't even aware at the time that you had struggled with it or had like, and it's been interesting for me as well. Cause I mean, I guess 10, 15 years ago, I had a number of close friends who were kind of like my drinking friends to boot. They were sitting me down like, dude, you might need to check this out. Like you're partying real hard and you're going to burn out. And it just, same type of situation you were talking about of like, I keep looking at the next level of my life and that evolution. And it's like, you can't take this shit there. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's interesting too, when you start to either, just pull the trigger and say, I'm not drinking anymore, or you start to back way off. I've found so much that my persona, who I was wrapped up in that. And all of a sudden my friend group is changing.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of the, and it's not that I don't like those people or I don't enjoy those people, but when I'm sober, it's like, we don't really have a lot in common anymore. Like, and that comes back to something my father always, there are those gems that your mother or your father give to you along the road. And some of them are, well, I'm finding all of them are honestly coming true. One that I just struggled with and I hated, he was like, you are the company that you keep. Mm-hmm. And if you want to be a wealthy, successful, respected, like whatever, any combination of those things or other things, if you're not hanging around with those kinds of people, you're probably not getting there.
Yeah. Well, and for me, the men that I really admired that were older than me, they either did not drink or they hardly drank. There was no guys that threw down that were in their 60s that were powerful in themselves, mentoring other men. All the guys that were up there that I was like, I want to be just like him. They all either were sober or they were just like, I have a glass of wine once in a while, but not a big thing. There was nobody like me had I continued drinking and that was just going to like just try to keep up the persona. Nobody was doing that of the men that were older than me. So I'm like, okay, there's a clue right there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I saw that same, I started to, I've always emulated or idolized, I find a man or a woman that I respect highly and I start to like, what do they do? How do they behave? How do they act? And in my career in Microsoft, early on, it was like a frat house, honestly. Mm-hmm. But as I started to watch the people that I really respected that continued to climb the ladder, that was the funny thing. Yeah. Those are the people that came to the parties and they had a beer and they socialized a little bit, said hi, and then took off. They went and did their stuff. I was the guy that stayed there until it was closed and then maybe went and filled the back of my pickup with beer and came back to party with whoever was left over. Yeah.
That would never happen.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
No, yeah.
Okay. Well, so we talked a little bit as well, how the Mankind Project specifically, one of their tenets, one of their tools or protocols is your mission statement. And I don't want to put you on the spot. I should have asked this ahead of time. I don't know if you keep it memorized.
I do.
Of course.
Yeah.
Your mission statement. Let's talk about that. What is your mission statement?
I create a world of inspiration and joy by taking risks and leading men is my mission statement.
So the way you behave day to day, I can tell you're in your mission or not.
Yeah. And then you create a shadow mission, which is the other side. So my shadow mission, just so you don't think I'm all about the gold, is I create a world of indecision and confusion by playing it safe and making myself small. So, it could be on a particular area of my life or a particular day. Shadow could be running the day. If you see me indecisive or acting confused, or maybe I'm not up for something, I'm playing small. That's my shadow that's trying to assert itself and be seen in my life. But often if the conversations are uplifting, inspiring, or you see me leading conversations around men, that's definitely mission. My writing, the podcast is often in mission. And so, it's something I've memorized. I've never changed it. There's men that create one on the weekend and then they don't really like it, and so they tinker with it and fine tune it. Mine always felt like it really hit the sweet spot for me. I've never really had to change it, and it always feels like, no, I'm still good with that. That still feels like my life.
Knowing you for 10 plus years, it feels pretty solid.
yeah And I can just, if all you did is go on that weekend and you came out of it with a mission statement that was that clear, your version, I mean, it will elevate your life in ways that I can't even say how that's going to do. It will unpredictably elevate your life because you've just stated what you're going to make everything about.
Yeah.
And so when you don't do it that way, you know, David Data is the one great men's writer who writes a lot about mission, and he says, you know, it's a recipe for kind of a mediocre life. Not to judge people that don't have missions, but he's like, you're never really going to get out on your edge. You're really not going to test the upward limits of who you are if you don't make something that's lofty for yourself.
Yeah.
Sometimes people do it with goals, you know, and that's a fine way to do it. I think, yeah, same kind of thing. I think the Mankind Project recognized a mission had these kind of principles or qualities that were near and dear to the man that you put as the centerpiece of your life, and then that's what you build everything around. Everything has to revolve. So your marriage looks that way. And your marriage could be part shadow, as often they are. You always working out with your wife or your husband. That the edge. And I know my wife has taught me more than any other person in the world. My wife has taught me how to be a man. Yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
So yeah.
I mean, it goes both ways.
Sure.
So
yeah.
I don't feel like I've taught you much other than how to put up with a lot of bullshit.
Oh, honey, you've taught me so much.
You have. You know you have.
Yeah.
Chris is a natural teacher.
I jest.
Yeah.
He's a natural teacher.
Oh, and he's a natural leader too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So. Do you have a mission?
I do, and I should have had it. I don't have it memorized. So I, like Tony mentioned, he said folks will go through that weekend and work on fine tuning it for a while. I did my first mission statement, I think, in the first men's group I joined you with, and I still am working on tuning it. It's pretty tight. I'm going to go ahead and make a commitment I don't want to make on the air, but I will go ahead and post my my mission statement and shadow mission statement along with the podcast notes.
It was fun.
Yours is good. I remember
it was pretty
super
solid.
Powerful. Both of them were.
Yeah.
Something about helping to mentor people being their best version of themselves.
Helping people, like basically create and enlighten. And,
because mine is to elevate others to be their best selves.
It's very similar actually.
Perfect for you
very,
too.
very similar.
How weird.
Yeah. Well, that's so strange. Right?
I know.
Yeah.
It's weird that would happen that way.
Yeah.
So we danced around a little bit to your podcast. I don't know that everybody knows. I didn't mention that. You have played a huge role in me getting into podcasting. I know we talked about it for years, and here we are because you kept like, hey, Chris, when are you going to do that podcast?
Yeah.
When's that going to happen? So here we are. And tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Yeah. Base Camp for Men is the name of it. I got hired by a big media company called the Epoch Times in New York City. They were going to do 5 podcasts. They wanted one to be for men. And because I was an author of a men's book, they asked me if I would go ahead and host that. And that was 146 episodes ago. And it's been awesome. And I sometimes get sometimes we're doing, I like to say we have 3 kind of categories of episodes that the episodes fall in. So there's all the healthy masculinity stuff that started off, like those first 20 episodes. If you go to the beginning, you'll see initiation, you'll see men's development, men's work, men's groups, all that stuff. And we still do episodes about that, how to be your best, the best man in a relationship and this stuff. The second group is a lot of consciousness myths. So you'll find the Holy Grail, the Fallen Goddess, all the myth stuff, Joseph Campbell that I'm really interested in, Hero's Journey, all that stuff kind of falls. And that's not really gender specific, those episodes. And then the third one is kind of the more controversial stuff I've gotten into, like extraterrestrials, the counter narrative to COVID. I've gotten into some, what is Q? What is the value of the information coming out of that? Those are considered more controversial. It drove a lot of listeners to the show.
Say, I bet
those are the most popular shows, and
Yep.
I get listeners who go, "Why don't you do more of the conspiracy theory stuff?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't want to do because my interest isn't only in that category. I'm interested in men's work, how to relationships with women, the masculine feminine balance, myth. So I don't want to get pigeonholed into one.
Yeah.
But one of the things that Corey's doing, my website guy, is we're going to build categories so the people that really love that stuff
They can
find, here's 25 episodes, or I only want the men stuff, or I really only like the consciousness myth stuff, but here's 45 episodes that are right in that wheelhouse. And I try to title them so people know. In the title, usually you can tell, okay, this one he's saying is a more edgy, controversial one, or this one's got men or masculinity in the title, or here he's talking about myth. It's obvious in how he titled the episode. So I try to lead them into what it is so they don't waste their time if that's not what they're interested in. So yeah.
And remind me again, you're doing is it a weekly cadence you're doing?
Yeah, I have a Tuesday show, so every Tuesday morning it's out. So I have it all finished and I give it to Chris on Monday. Chris, my sound editor, fires it back to me Monday night, and then I upload it on Tuesday. And I've taken a couple short breaks just when I need a breather, because after the show is built around interviews, so almost every one is an interview. So I've got to get the guests, as you know, you've been on. I have to do the research. If they've written books, I've got to get into their writing so I know what they're passionate about. And it's all time consuming. So usually I like to take a break about every 40 or 50 episodes just to catch my breath, even if it's for a few weeks.
Yep.
And so that's kind of been the pace. But you can find it anywhere. It's called Basecamp for Men. The website's basecamformen.com. Super easy. It's all over the place. So yeah. Very
cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being here, Tony. Sarah, Tony, you guys have anything else you want to chat on, or?
I'd be curious to know what the strategy is around bringing people into this, because obviously it's great to talk about it and there's resources all over if people are interested, but how do you indoctrinate people into wanting to explore this more?
I think some of it's organic. I think that there's websites where you can go and be guests on other podcasts. I think that's a really good way to get the word out, is to have a guest. Chris comes on my show, we talk about his new show, and they have like podcastguest.com. They will reach out to you and say, hey, will you come and be a guest on my show? And then you can promote your show. I hate to say this because I know that there's a lot of listeners that probably like social media a lot. I don't really like Facebook, but I do advertise on Facebook. So I send out a targeted thing with the right tags about what the episode's about, and people click through onto the website and listen. So are you talking about that, or are you talking about something different?
I'm talking about indoctrinating people into this idea of the mature masculine and the initiation process, and how we introduce that more into the mainstream.
I think that
it's through the podcast.
And I think through stuff like that, just the more men and women that speak of it as something that's important, I think it's it. And how we do the next generation of young men that are coming up, are they going to be interested in something like a New Warrior Training, or are they going to do something else? I know there's other groups like the Sacred Sons that are these younger guys that are starting to initiate men. And so I think as long as it stays in the conversation, it's a timeless topic. So I don't know if it's necessarily something that's of the times. Like when Chris and I grew into being mature men, this was really important. I think there's a reason it's been around since the beginning of time, since men have been thinking about what it means to be a man. There's been these kinds of processes because they recognize if we don't do this, we start acting really squirrely. There's all this, arrested development that gets expressed, and we're rudderless ships. We act in weird ways, where we have more violent behavior than we need to have, and stuff. So I just think the more that it's talked about in a positive way. Sorry, I misunderstood you. I thought you were talking about the pod. So yeah.
Well, I think it's important as well, because there's been a number, since we started working together. It's funny, I look at it differently, where I'll run into somebody and I'll be talking about a situation in their marriage or this or that, and I'm like, oh man, you know what you need to do. But it's funny, you can feel it.
Yeah.
People are either ready or they're not.
Totally.
Because there are times where it's like, I have the solution. I know I have the solution for you.
Yeah.
But I know you're not ready for it.
Oh my goodness. The number of times I say that to myself, a few of them where I'm like, nope. Oh sis, you're not ready.
Like, man, and your life is going to change when it comes time.
That's why I knew you were ready. You were doing Rolfing sessions with me.
Yep.
But as you know, those can be talking about lots of different things. And so as we're kicking the tires on what's really going on, you're revealing all this stuff, and you're being really authentic in your heart. And you're saying, this is struggle. Have you ever struggled with this? You're asking me questions man to man. And I'm like, this guy is authentic. He's ready for the next tools. He's not somebody that's going to shy away. His mind's not closed off. So I knew right away, here's a guy that's up for the next thing, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes I've had those conversations with the same kinds of people on the table, and it's like, no, I don't want to. No.
Yep.
They just change the topic. I'm like, okay, you're not interested in that. All right, no big deal.
But when you hear somebody say something like, "Why is this happening to me? Why
Why
can't
does this
I
keep
get away
happening?"
from this?"
Right,
And
yeah.
it's like, because you're resonating on that frequency until
You
you
tuned
stop.
in. You tuned into that energy.
Yeah.
Yep.
You bought the subscription.
You bought the subscription.
Yeah.
You
Time
put it
to
on.
cancel
You
it.
put it on auto renew. It's time to find it and track it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. But I just like, when I say, well, what do you think it is about what's happening right now that is making this happen? Oh, I don't know. Like, oh, nope, you're not ready.
Not ready.
You haven't
don't see
figured
it.
out that you have you have some skin in that game.
Responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
You have a responsibility. The words that you say and the things that you think, man,
I know.
I never realized how powerful
think
that shit is.
think shitty stuff all the time, and shitty things are going to happen in your life.
Yeah.
Well, and have you two been over time? You both did the landmark? Is that
Yeah.
right? Yeah. One of the great things is it teaches you to really listen for language. So like to your point, Sarah, when you say somebody's saying, why does this keep happening? But you listen to how they talk about things
Yep.
and you're like, I can tell you right now
Yeah.
Yeah.
why that's happening.
I know why it's
You're
happening.
languaging for it to happen.
You're creating it.
You're totally
I
creating it.
keep seeing that on social media. The whole hippy dippy stuff. They call it spelling. You're spelling something into
Yes.
existence
Yeah.
when you speak it out.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the most powerful things that I've done for myself is I've trained my inner voice to be my biggest cheerleader. And I think I talked about
great.
this in the first podcast as well. I've literally every single time that my brain says something shitty to me about me, I go, nope. Here's direct evidence that is incorrect.
Yeah. Why would you say that? Like, I'm super awesome. I'm really good at that. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
And it has changed the way that I talk to myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
and your
amazing.
entire life experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know when I'm around somebody that has a more enlightened way of seeing things, when I don't hear them complain about a whole lot.
Yeah.
Like when people cease complaining, I know, oh, they're really doing their work.
Mhm.
There's this alchemy because this person maybe was a big complainer 10
Yep.
years ago, and now I don't ever hear anything like
Yeah,
that
it's-
coming out of her mouth.
Gratitude.
So it's like, okay, wait, there's some evolution going on here.
Mhm.
And I don't have a big tolerance for people that are going to just speak negatively
Ill.
or just talk gossip, complain.
Mhm.
I just don't like it. It's just
Nope.
kind of like, it's,
Yeah.
we can do better. The person speaking it can do better. They're just not in that space. They're running a racket. They're just like,
I don't resonate on that
It's
frequency
like,
anymore.
Yeah. I just would rather give them space to
Yeah.
work that out. But I don't want to be engaging because I'm like, it's not, my take on it is not what you're going to appreciate. To
Exactly.
be honest with
I'm-
you.
my breed of honesty is not going to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that, everybody knows, don't ask me a question if you don't want the answer.
Yeah.
Like the honest answer. Because this
I'm
going
going to give it to you.
No matter how hard I try, I cannot lie
Beautiful.
about that. So.
Love it.
Well, thank you so much for being on. Hopefully we will do
Yeah.
it again soon.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Alrighty,
thank
folks.
you for including me. That was
Keep being
awesome.
awesome, everybody. Love you lots.
Until next time.